Welcome to Digital Hospitality. I am your host, Shawn Walchef. This is a Cali BBQ media production. We believe that every business needs to be digital first, and we also believe that every business is in the hospitality business, whether they know it or not. We started this crazy little show back in 2017, back when nobody was listening, but we had a deep belief that as restaurateurs, as business owners, entrepreneurs, that we were not alone. And here we are, 2024. We've connected with so many incredible business owners, incredible technology professionals all over the globe, all trying to solve the same problem. We all have the same problem in the same cities, in the same villages, in the same countries, in the same bars and the same restaurants, hotels. We are all trying to better service our guests. And we're really grateful that today we get to have Brian Hassan and Justin Roberts, two co-founders of a company called Kickfin. If you don't know about Kickfin, after this episode, you're going to be wondering why your employees, your staff, your servers are not getting kick-finned. Yes, that's a verb. They're getting kick-finned. What's up, gentlemen? Thanks for being here.
Great to see you, my friend.
John, great to see you. Thanks for the time again.
So, Brian, let's set the stage for our audience. When did we first meet?
Man, we first met during the genesis of Kickfin. We had a conversation, I think, at a prior accounting firm that you used to work with made an introduction. And that's what's cool about that is, you know, you've been in business, but your brand was going through a transformation, and here you are today. It's pretty epic to watch the growth. And while we weren't going through a transformation, we were just getting started. Man, that was 2019. So 5 years ago was when we had our first conversation. So I have the privilege to connect with you today and share the Kickfin story, do it alongside my best friend and partner in crime here, Justin Roberts. Could be a fun one.
I think what excites me the most, why I love doing this show, is anybody that's listening, anybody that's watching, like, we are all curious people, but we're also people of action. So like, we get shit done. We are willing to take risks. We're willing to do things differently. I had a call with you, and you told me with so much passion and so much belief that banking was broken. Mm-hmm. Banking was broken, and the way that restaurants do tips was broken, and that you were solving this problem, but you were so convicted in your belief, and yet now look where you are now. Inc. has named you top 3% of the fastest growing companies for tip management software. You're the 24th in software category for SaaS. I mean, it's incredible how fast you've scaled, and to think that you're just getting started, right?
That's it. You know, the thing is too, it's the conviction, right? So when we first got this thing off the ground, a lot of investors said the market's not big enough. The problem's not big enough. And I go back thinking my dad was a manager. He managed that assortment of restaurants, Marie Callender's, Perkins, Waffle House, you name it. Justin and I threw the idea at him. He says, this is gold. This would make my life so much easier. I remember my mom was a server, and she'd be like counting dollar bills on the table. And so it's just really cool to have not just the conviction and passion for it, but also like live it and see it every day. So we went with that conviction beyond and in contrary, but investors at the earliest stages told us that this is just not a big enough market. And he said, listen, get out from behind your desk, go sit in the back office with an operator, see the amount of time, but see the emotion, because when you're trying to sell a product, if you can actually pull on those emotional strings, and you can actually you can recognize the challenge, you can bring a product to market, and it really makes their days and their operations that much simpler. It's a win-win. And so that's how we brought it to market. And you were one of the individuals that we talked to early on when we were doing our field testing that validated this problem to you and many other operators. So really excited. Thank you for the acknowledgement. We're growing fast, but we're growing smart, and we're working with some of the best brands in the country, and hopefully adding several thousand more to our list in the coming year.
That's awesome. I would love to hear, Justin, was it you or was it Brian? I mean, who had to convince who?
Well, this is startup free for us. We were roommates. we joined the corporate ranks together at ADP. We were crazy enough to start a business in our mid-20s. We sold that to private equity, and you could, when you have a partner that it's very much yin and yang. If you get us in a room, we're very, very different people. But I think that's what makes the journey all that much more enjoyable. It makes the hard days, maybe not be so hard because the way in which people think. And Shawn, I appreciate the, recognition of that award, for the fastest growing, software, company especially within the hospitality space. But, there are some really humble days back when we used to literally go door to door and sit with operators with literally a bag of cash. And they would say, I'm not going out to the ATM or the bank branch to get this to basically create a little surplus. This is only to pay, my employees. And we both know, I mean, our belief is this is an easy industry to get excited about. It's frontline workers, people that pour their heart into hospitality. You have a feeling when you interact with these brands. We do it with their families, we do it with our friends. And so when we came up with this hypothesis about, like, we were looking at the technology stack of hospitality venues, and man, point of sale was kind of a mature market, the online ordering, the digital scheduling, like there was at least one of five of everything. And I think from Brian and I's perspective, when we started to have those conversations, yes, people that sat behind a desk in a white collar job that could pick up a phone or send an email, they weren't the people that were closing a place at 2 a.m, sending texts while they're trying to fill out an order for delivery for lettuce or whatever it may be. And so our thing was, hey, if we can at least get out here, field test this enough, start to see some pattern recognition in those green lights flashing, we were going to do it no matter who said no to us. It was like, we're going to put our money where our mouth is. We self-funded the business for close to 2 years.
Wow.
Simply because we were like, there has to be a better way. Like, you should have a platform that really serves a two-sided marketplace. You got to make an operator's day be more efficient. And you really want to delight their employees. If you look at gratuities, it's a very personal experience, right? It's based on performance and how I get paid. And if we can do the little things of how do you allow somebody to stay better gainfully employed, get a bus ticket faster, not have to deposit cash, then, the years of 5, 6, 7 years of grinding, it makes it all worth it, from our perspective.
Those 2 years self-funded, bring me into a story of, did you ever think about quitting?
No way.
Really?
You can't. If you, from our perspective, when we had that, of course, do you have those days where you're like, what are we doing? We took our first round of capital when COVID hit. So we weren't even in the same office when we signed the papers for Loomis to make an investment in Kickfin. We had to do it remotely. It was a celebration that we couldn't do together. And we had to take this money and we had to hire people remotely that we had never met. But I think, like, I go back to the audience that we're serving, or even that you're in. Like, if you even allow doubts, you run a media platform, you run hospitality venues. If you even allow any kind of doubt, I think that's what makes entrepreneurs a little bit nutty. If you allow yourself to even have an inkling, it's so easy to quit. And if you look at entrepreneurship, it's sustained, consistent work over an extended period of time. And if you're not willing to kind of say, hey, listen, there's going to be some days that are a little bit wonky, and man, I do feel like, maybe hitting the road earlier. And I think in the hospitality industry, you're only as good as the day you're performing, right? It's like, did you do well that day? And I think that's what entrepreneurship is too. It's like, you don't have the luxury of time. It's not like we took on capital that said, hey guys, chill, do your thing for 5 years. No, you have 18 months. So I don't say that in an arrogant way. No, were there any doubts? Of course, there was those days that were bad. But I think if you would have let, multiple days sink in that you're like, man, this thing could go down. We're employing people. We can't let them down. If we do, like, that's a horrible thing. Like, they're entrusting us to do so. And I think hospitality operators feel that same level of stress every day. Like, I've got these people showing up to work here. Like, I got to be right by them.
Hey everyone, Avi Gorin, CEO and co-founder of Marquee, and I want to talk about the customer journey for a second. You never know as a restaurant owner where your guests are truly coming from. end of the day, we do see some patterns around two types of search behaviors: direct versus discovery. Direct search, for an example, would be jumping into Google and saying Cali barbecue hours, right? I know where I want to go to eat, but I'm missing a key detail. I need a little bit more information. Discovery, which is the bulk of searches, is barbecue in San Diego, restaurants near me, takeout near me, right? One of the best ways to be found for more discovery searches is leveraging keywords. Reviews are basically free content for you to leverage. Think about keywords that are relevant to your brand, your location, and include as many of those in your review responses as possible, right? How can you go about doing this? Let's set up reports, utilize tools like Google Trends, find out what's going on in your area and how you can help leverage these keywords and review responses, because someone else is doing that, right? If you need some examples, you could do anything from including summer menu, gluten-free menu, leverage specific menu items like the dreaded and beloved spice pumpkin anything in your review responses, right? Let them know what's coming. Let your reviewers know something they should come back and try. And of course, if all of this just seems overwhelming and daunting because you're already running a restaurant and have enough on your plate, just leverage the team at Marquee to do this for you. We handle all of this. We're experts in this space. We can automate this so it's just another item that you know you are taking care of. Again, that's marquee.com, marquii.com. No U. However, we did recently buy marquii.com. So if you do misspell it, we got you. You'll still find us. We can still help you.
The results are in. National Restaurant Association show. Kyle and Sarah and myself, we were at the Davos sales tax booth and we were polling restaurant owners on the floor. This was a very unscientific poll, but the results are resounding. Restaurant owners do not like sales tax. Nobody likes sales tax. Doesn't matter what business owner you are, small business, big business. Davo automates the sales tax process. We are so grateful that Davo is the sponsor of this show. They automate sales tax at our Cali barbecue restaurants. It is $50 a month. It integrates with all the major point of sale partners, including Toast. So if you want to sleep at night, if you want to not worry about sales tax, go to Davo, check them out, Davo Sales Tax. Let us know how they're helping automate your sales tax in your restaurant so that we can share your Davo story on digital hospitality. I mean, what you said resonates so much with me as somebody that started a media company and for 5 years poured my own money, restaurant money that we didn't have into some crazy idea, knowing deeply that the internet connects all of us and that there's people that are curious. There's people that want to get involved. There's people that are willing to ask for help. And I mean, had I quit year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, before we first got our first brand deal and our first client, like I would have never interviewed Shaquille O'Neal. I wouldn't be sitting here interviewing you while my team at Cali Barbecue is running their operations. I mean, yesterday, I interviewed Victor Luger, who is the CEO, co-CEO of Big Mamas. It's a group that sold for $270 million. They have 2,500 employees all across London and Italy, and they're coming to the United States. He has an app called the Sunday app. And I'm having this conversation with him, knowing that when I first started these shows, I knew that if I kept asking the right questions, if I got a little bit better, eventually I would start to be able to interview incredible people. One of the things that he said to me was something about speed. And it's interesting for me to talk about speed because we have a barbecue business and we build our barbecue like we build our media, low and slow growth. But there's something about speed that I don't talk a lot about. Can you guys talk about the value of speed when you're building something?
Yeah, so I'll say, first off, to Justin's comments, the deeper the valleys, the higher the peaks. In entrepreneurship, the grind is important. And the number one thing, I think, for any entrepreneur is having a great co-founder to do it with. Because when you're in the lows, they're in the highs and vice versa, they pull you along. And I'm going to answer that question, but I do want to say, Justin's probably the best or the only and best co-founder I've ever had. We've had around 3,000 lunches with one another. We sat side by side for 10 years. And so we almost know what each other's thinking. And so when you asked him that question about you ever have any doubts in giving up, the answer is no, because we lift each other up every day. And I think that's the magic superpower that we have here at Kickfin. Now, getting to your question with respect to like speed, I think speed is important to an extent. I say that because far too many companies are built with speed in mind. We go back to that zero interest rate period, and all these software companies are getting all this money at overinflated valuations, and they're just building recklessly. And as a result, a lot of these companies are going out of business, which hurts restaurants that depend on that solution because they're going out of business, right? And so from our perspective, we appreciate speed, but we more so appreciate accuracy in building something that's not a speedboat, rather building a battleship. Our CTO, Mike Cathy, always says, I don't build speedboats, I build battleships. I'm not going to put anything out to sea unless I know the thing is bulletproof and you can't sink it. And he goes, sometimes we'll be a little bit slower, but it's going to be done right. And our customer success team loves that. And it's an award-winning team. You can look us up on Software Advice, G2, et cetera. So that even goes back to the company. Justin and I built an InsurTech and HR tech company. And we built that in 2008. And that was like during the great financial crisis. So like, I feel like Justin and I were really skilled at doing a lot with a little. And thanks to having great teammates like Mike Cathy, our CTO, and Larissa Thomas, our VP of operations, we really subscribe to that make it battleship ready, and don't just put something out to put something out. Because at the end of the day, to a comment Justin made a little bit earlier, if you're in the restaurant business, you got one shot. You got one shot to impress your customer. You want them to come back, you really have to impress them with that experience, with that product, with that plate of food. And we live and die by the same rules. I mean, if you don't like what Kickfin's doing for you, you're going to leave and look elsewhere. So speed to a certain extent, but not speed for the sake of driving revenue at all costs. If it compromises that battleship ready mentality that our company has.
There's also it's interesting about, sound bites, right? They're all readily available. We can get them. I think
clips.
Clips.
Hey, our media company is built on clips.
I love it. But here's, a compliment. I think what we're all trying to do. You're trying to give the operator that has maybe 10 minutes on his ride home, a library to tap into, to say, listen, there's this theme, this concept, and whether it was Shaquille O'Neal's brand or anybody else's, you're trying to give them 10 minutes, maybe a day, just to take a step out of their business, right?
Yes.
And I think when I look at the work that you guys are doing in the platform that you've created, there's so few and far between who people from a media perspective can give not sound bites, but quality material. Or just did I think of that correctly? I mean, if I look at our founding team, they're all still here today. I mean, Keely, as you know very well, Larissa, awesome. Mike, and the list kind of really goes on. But it's the people, right, that have done this. And I think, as we look at our success, and I say ours, it's not Brian and I, it's these people who literally said, hey, I believe in this day one, I want to be part of it. And so we talk about, a little bit about what Brian was saying about, not compromising for the sake of speed. It's the same thing. Anybody can go on and get the quick 30-second soundbite, feel good about themselves, want to run through a brick wall. But then you have to turn that, that ability to consume data off and actually do the work, right? And there's the interesting thing is you can't do it by yourself. You got to have a great group around you. So it's kind of funny how, media, venture capital, how it all actually, there's a lot of overlap there that, hopefully more people connect the dots on.
I think so. I would love to learn about what are your thoughts on banking, the current state of banking for restaurants. What have you learned?
So as far as the current state of banking, first off, you have on the top, you have the Wells, the B of A's, the Citis, and the JP Morgans, which are primarily, they're just not friendly to any business that doesn't have at least, a few $1 million of assets with them. So what we see with a lot of our clients is they're typically banking more so like middle market and community banks. But here's where we've seen where some trouble's been brewing here. So what's been happening, and this goes back to speed, that comment you made earlier, you have a lot of these companies recognizing how difficult it is for businesses to bank or for consumers to bank and saying, this is a big point of friction using the big players. So let's go ahead and build a fintech platform that's around banking for businesses or for consumers. Yep. And they build it so fast, they raise so much money at unrealistic valuations. And then what happens? These banks that are built on these banking as a service platforms, the fintechs get shut down. The businesses and the consumer funds get frozen. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if you've been following what has been happening with Synapse, for example. Like, there's a lot of companies, a lot of fintechs that use this company Synapse that was built on top of a lot of different banks. Synapse's ledger didn't match the larger bank's ledger, and guess what happens? These businesses cannot pull their money out. These consumer funds are frozen. It might not be at the top of CNN or the New York Times, but if you're talking straight about banking, this is where fintechs get in trouble. We rewind again 5 minutes ago. It's all about speed. That's the mentality a lot of these fintechs use, is that I recognize a problem with restaurants and businesses and consumers, the challenges they have with banking, with the large players. Let's slap something together. It looks really beautiful with a great UI, but was like really poor infrastructure. Who cares about the compliance? And then things run amok. So as far as banking is concerned, massive red flag when it comes to like fintech banks. We see more migration going back up to the bigger players. And it's sad because the bigger players don't have that relationship and they don't cater to the businesses at all. But what the business is weighing now is what's more important to me is my money going to be safe? What's not as important is the relationship, and what's not as important is the tool. And that's sad because, as you know, for any restaurant to grow, having access to capital is critical, And a lot of the larger banks make that very difficult. So hopefully that kind of hones in kind of briefly on like how we see business banking, consumer banking for restaurants and their employees.
I mean, I appreciate you addressing the topic primarily because I don't hear it enough. We don't talk about banking in restaurants. Primarily, I don't know for what reason, but there isn't a preferred banking partner. Obviously regional banks, local banks, big national banks, but like I don't hear restaurateurs talking about how great. No one's making a banking unboxing video like my Toast unboxing video. Like, oh, my great relationship with my bank or my great relationship with my workers' comp policy. Like those are things that we're not doing. But let's talk about payouts. Let's talk about tip outs. Let's talk about payouts. Let's talk about why Kickfin does why you do what you do. Bring me into the magic that is Kickfin. What is getting Kickfinned? What is getting Kickfinned?
There's really kind of two elements that, unless you kind of bring them both together, it all really doesn't make sense. The first piece is really from the data from the point of sale. And if you think about the consumption of that, it's the hours worked, the percentage of money being transacted through the system. And then that's kind of two feeds of information, right? And what's always been interesting, to Brian, myself, and the team we work with is we see tipping policies from some of your largest brands down to your single operator. And if I focus specifically even on the larger brands that kind of from a franchise perspective should have operationalized kind of everything. You use this point of sale, you use this scheduling. Those are all the same, but no one has that same tip policy. Different markets operate and function differently. And so where we think the magic really is in how we've built the software is we have done an extensive amount of understanding and rewiring the way in which those tips are sliced and diced, making sure that people feel equitable, that there's transparency behind how we're moving this money, and that manager can look at that as their system of truth to say, hey, the output of today's work was managed correctly. Like that is a financial services platform and a tip calculation platform that I can rely on. It's trustworthy, it's treasury management, it's reporting, and it's compliance. So that's kind of the piece here. The other piece is the payout piece of that. So when Brian and I were first like looking at this opportunity, the aha moment for us came is don't try to change massive behavior, lean into it. And I'll give you an example. When we were bringing this to market, the largest kind of probably pool that operators recruit from are gig workers, right? Your Uber Eats, your Grubhub, your DoorDashes. Those are kind of your frontline, service workers that, want that instant gratification of being paid now, can show up without an extensive amount of training and get to work, right? Make money. And what we found was that the gig economy had such a uptick and just massive amount of movement that people would work, get paid instantly and directly to their bank of choice. And so we said, well, we really believe after the field testing we did that these employees want choice. They don't want to be forced into a third-party pay card. They don't want to say, hey, you're going to get your W-2 wage here, but now tips, you got to sign up for this card. So we said, forget that. Let's let that employee, whether it's a local credit union, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, the moment that shift is done, it could be 2 a.m. on Saturday, we're going to instantly and directly deposit that money in their bank of choice. So imagine the wow factor. You get done instead of sitting there and watching that person in an analog safe counting cash. Brian and I would sit and watch these people, and it was so cool. And they picked up their cell phone, and cha-ching, they got paid that $175 that they can walk out safely. They can feel that it's in an account where now they have to be more responsible. How am I going to pay that cell phone bill, my rent checks, and what have you? And then obviously as times have changed, we've gotten smarter even, how do we pay your PayPal, your Venmo, your other things? And so the interesting part about us, and Brian said this at the beginning, there's a lot more left to do because the stats are as follows. Visa on a Q3 earnings call said 80 to 90% of people are still paying in physical cash. So we haven't even necessarily broken.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Paying tips.
Yeah. Paying tips.
Wow.
So if you think about it, we're converting
That's
physical
amazing.
cash. And Visa was like, this is such an interesting, new way to take what is analog and now digitize it. And the card brands that, they love it. And I think that from our perspective, where we really see the blue ocean opportunity is how do you combine that operation efficiency tool, making sure that engine that you've created is the heartbeat right along next to the point of sale, and then give the most modern way to pay employees. That's a really exciting business to be a part of.
Because you think about it, to Justin's point, 80 to 90% of restaurants at the end of an employee shift are paying in cash. They're actually, they're trucking it on via Loomis. Yep. They're running to the bank to pick up cash. They're filling the envelopes.
Yeah. So, that's how they're doing it today. So from our perspective, this isn't data we're grabbing out of the sky and saying, hey, we're going to own this. The reputable card brands did it. And from that, from our perspective, I think that really validates that, Kickfin's not just a nice little feature company. It's a category. It's gratuity management is now a category that is heavily relied upon across operators of all size.
Can you share for those that are listening, running restaurants, who you guys integrated with? Who's the big partner ecosystem?
Yeah. So we've got at the top, we've got Toast, Oracle, NCR Aloha, Heartland, Posi Touch, Future, Focus, Harbor Touch, SkyTab, R Power, Oracle, and it's PAR, and probably a half dozen more, and another half dozen in the hopper. So those integrations are super, super powerful for our users. I also want to talk about the payouts real quick that Justin hit on, because the only way to successfully disintermediate cash is streaming it directly to their bank account. Think about what they're doing today. They're getting their cash, they're going to the ATM, they're making the deposit. Some players took the shortcut and they're like, let's just issue these tip cards or these virtual cards. Got really two problems with that. Problem number one is people don't want to know the bank account. Problem number two is that question you asked about 5 minutes ago. These cards are built on this banking as a service layer, and their funds are getting frozen. There are some players and competitors in our space where employees have their money put on these tip cards. They still, to this day, cannot access it. It's been like 4 or 5 months. And these funds are on these cards. And so when it comes to trust, the trust comes if you're able to facilitate money movement between one party and their chosen bank, not facilitating towards money movement, and a card that I issued by a startup that has a little bit of funding with their logo on it. Like, that is scary stuff. And so from our perspective, like, these are people that work so hard for their money, and every dollar matters. And to have the volume, we do around like 2 billion a year in payouts. And we're doing that direct to bank, not to a Kickfin card by any means. I think that's super powerful. It's safe. It's industrial strength. So we're really proud of the payouts we've built. Well, we integrate with pretty much every single POS. So when we get an inbound restaurant that wants to talk about, hey, how can you help solve this problem for me? We're like, 99% chance we already integrate with your POS. 99% chance we can configure your tip policies. I mean, we get so granular with some of these things. And then we're going to put it right in the employee's bank account. And they're saying that win, win, win.
That's awesome. Well, we are huge fans. Obviously, we've been following you guys for a long time, official Cali Barbecue Media partners. We're going to be telling a lot more stories of Kickfin customers. So if you are a Kickfin customer, please reach out to us, because we want to hear about your restaurant, your story, how you're using Kickfin. We can't wait to see you guys at all the trade shows. And if there's anything that this audience, if they want to reach out, what's the best way for them to go about it?
Easy. You got kickfin.com. They can click on a link there, submit their information, and we'll be sure to get back to you. And our promise is, whether you use us or not, the fact that we can at least say, here's how you should be thinking about potentially vetting or looking at alternatives. The industry is too important to feel like you're pushing something on. We have tons of free content and information that our marketing team put together, and that's why we have partnerships like with you guys at Cali Barbecue Media, because it's like, hey, listen, if we can give somebody 5-10 minutes of time to rethink, is there something else or a better alternative? Then that's the goal here, and so we feel lucky to be here with you.
We love the transparency, the fact that you're helping operators, hire better people and pay people better, pay them quickly, pay them to their bank account where they need to be paid. It's really exciting to see what you guys are doing. We can't wait to see end of 2024 into 2025, but we appreciate you guys for being on the show. If you guys want to reach out to me, at Shawn P. Walchef, ShawnPWalchef. As always, stay curious, get involved. Don't be afraid to ask for help. We'll catch you guys next week.